Hanging off me.
All right, everybody. We got a plan for today. It is Celtics Lakers Day, one of the funnest days of the NBA season. The long distance rivalry is renewed. Plus, we got a few mailbag questions coming at you. This is Green with Envy. Let's lock in. What up, what up, what up? Welcome into another edition of Green with Envy. As always, is your boy Will Weir checking in. How you doing? How you living? It is a great day in Celtic Nation. Celtics, Lakers, a rivalry renewed tonight. And here to help me break it all down and get you set and ready for tonight's matchup, my podcast and cousin from across the pond, the lead writer for Celtics blog, and of course, the leader of the Taylor Gang. You know who it is. It's Adam Taylor. Adam, what's going on, man?
I want an applause button for when you do this at the end. So it's like, yay.
Dude,
Now,
you know what? I've thought about that. So there's a podcast that I used to listen to. We've talked about before. You like the show Scrubs, right?
yeah.
So they have their own podcast. So they during the pandemic, I used to listen to that all the time. Like it still is a good podcast. I don't listen to it quite as much, but during the pandemic, I listened to it all the time. And they were just kind of learning on the fly, like how to podcast, how to do all these different things. And so like anytime they would have a guest on, they did have like an applause button, and it was great. Like it was uplifting for the entire show. Each time they did it, everybody loved it. So I have thought about installing that on our show, but it feels like a little bit of thievery. So I haven't really pushed for it.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of places are doing it right. Like, it wouldn't
Right.
just, we're not stealing
you,
it from them.
You can't steal applause for guests, right? That's not like that's
Stealing applause for myself. Never mind the guest.
right. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, we got the Lakers today, this evening. It's already, what, less than 12 hours now?
Yeah, it's about, so we're recording this here. It's about 8:45 Eastern time today. So tip off tonight will be, I believe, 7:30 Eastern on TNT, right after actually the All-Star selections are going to be made. So will he or won't he? Derek White, Kristaps Porzingis, Jaylen Brown, I feel pretty confident will be there, but Kristaps Porzingis, Derek White will know before the game tips off if they've gotten the honor of going to Indianapolis. Adam, I know we gave out our picks about a week or so ago, and I think we both landed on that. Like the Celtics are probably going to get one of these guys in, whether it's tonight or it's as a replacement. But I think they still end up with three somehow, some way, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think, how can I put this? I want that to be the case. I'm not sure that is going to be the case. I just think there's so much talent everywhere, and
Yeah.
there's so many guys that are deserving. I can live with two. If they get the third, then great. I'm going to be super happy. It's a great recognition for what the team are doing. It's good recognition for whoever that third choice is.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not going to wake up tomorrow because I'm assuming they'll be released while I'm asleep. Who knows?
Yeah.
But if they are, I'm not going to wake up tomorrow and let it ruin my day if only Jaylen Brown gets picked, right?
Yeah, I think that's likely. And then I think, Julius Randle's hurt. There might be, Tyrese Halliburton just came back. So there's some different ways that I think a third Celtic, whether it's Porzingis or White, end up on the team. But we'll see. We'll know that before the game tips. But the game tonight, Celtics, Lakers. Adam, it's been a really weird week for the Celtics, not necessarily themselves, but in the standings directly behind them, where there has been kind of some chaos happening. The Blazers have taken out the Sixers and Bucks in back-to-back games. Didn't see that coming. As we look at the standings right now, Philadelphia is your 5 seed. The Cavs and Knicks have vaulted above the Sixers and are only a game and a half respectively back of chasing down the Bucks. So from a Celtics perspective, as we head into this Lakers matchup, there's starting to be quite a bit of distance between them and the rest of the pack, as they now have a 5-game lead on Milwaukee, who's way closer to being chased down by that group behind them, the Knicks, Cavs, and Sixers, than they are to actually catching the Celtics.
I don't want to speak about New York too much because we did that a bunch on the last episode, and this is a Celtics podcast. I feel like we're slowly leaning towards being a Knicks podcast. They're the team to me that have been the most impressive. That Anunoby trade kind of just solidified the Tom Thibodeau offense and defense. Everything seems to be clicking. Doc's lost his first 2 games with Milwaukee. The Bucks are sliding. Like there was concerns about their defense coming into the season. I don't think that was on Griffin, the way their defense went through the season. Doc might bring a little bit more continuity in the systems that he wants, but that's going to take time, and that's always the risk when you make a coaching change midway through the season. The Cavs, they're good. I'm not that scared, but I can definitely see New York chasing down Milwaukee. Can they finish second in the East? There's another, like, we're only halfway through the season.
Yeah.
There's a lot of basketball left to be played. Embiid hasn't been himself. He's been out of the rotation. He's played for injury. There's reasons why Philly are sliding where they are. And they're clawing back again. There's like another entire half of the season. For me, all I want is the Celtics to just keep building that gap. Keep making wins. Make as much space as you can. You want that first seed. Make it a pride point. Now that you've got it, you don't want to give it up, and it's just that extra little bit of pride that you want to keep hold of. And whatever happens behind you, let it happen. Obviously,
you can't control that, so why bother putting energy into that, right?
It could lead to a really difficult second round matchup. It could lead to one that's really favorable. Indiana have only just got Halliburton back. The game against Boston was his first time playing with Siakam. They're going to gel yet. How does that change the picture? How do they play? Can they move up? There's a lot going on. For me, all I say is focus on yourself, try and build that gap, and then worry about everything else further down the line.
And then as we look ahead to tonight, and this kind of plays into that point, right? Like, handle your business. Don't worry about what else is happening. Tonight, when they take on the Lakers, it's not your ordinary sub 500 team that comes in here, but that is where the Lakers are as they come into this game, 24-25. Quick programming note for those of you listening to this. If you want to actually watch this game with the Green with Envy crew, unfortunately, Adam will be asleep, but myself and Greg, we're hosting a playback room tonight. So if you're looking for that, I'll put the link in our description here, wherever you're listening to this show. We'll have that link. We'll post it on our Twitter. We'll post it on Instagram. Come join Playback's really cool spot where Greg and I will host a watch party, basically. We'll answer some questions. We might have a few guests pop in on stage, but let's just hang out, watch this game together. Should be a fun time. Come join us. But Adam, for this game tonight, like I said, Lakers come in 9th place in the West, 24-25. But anytime that you have LeBron James and you have Anthony Davis, two guys who might make the All-Star, like it's pretty crazy to think that the team sub 500, barely in the play-in, is going to get two All-Stars. But that's kind of what this team is. This team is built on two All-Stars and then trying to kind of make it work with all the other role players night to night. When you look at this LA team that's coming into Boston, other than just LeBron being LeBron in Boston, what are the parts of this team that you look to that say this could be a trouble spot for the Celtics tonight?
You mentioned handling your business. And to me, that's going to be number one on the priority list, because this Lakers team are going to come in. They're going to get foul calls after foul calls. They're going to get to the line way more than what you're going to want them to get to the line. The comfortability factor is going to be really on the Lakers side, because they know how to draw fouls. They put pressure on the rim. They force you into making contact. The Celtics, this is a good test in terms of, can they weather that storm, and can they not let themselves get sucked into the argument with the refs, letting the calls kind of deflate them? Because that's what the Lakers have been doing, right? We all saw the Toronto Darko going absolutely crazy after the game. I'm pretty sure it was the Lakers where Mike Brown brought in a laptop after the game. There was a huge disparity against the Warriors in a recent game. I think, like, it's just the way they play. And when you've got LeBron, there is going to be a bit more friendly whistle towards him as he's driving the lane. The dude's nearly 40. You know what I'm saying? The dude has been in the league longer than, I'd say, 25 to 28% of the fan base has been alive. And that's me being...
I saw a great thread the other day on Twitter or X, whatever, where it was LeBron and all of the father-son combinations that he's played against in the league. It was great. I mean, you have Gary Payton and Gary Payton II. You had Glenn Robinson and Glenn Robinson III. You had Jabari Smith Jr. and Jabari Smith. There was, you could have made a full roster of all of the father-son combinations that LeBron has played against. And for him to still be at this level, the fact that he's averaging 25 points a game, he's averaging 7.5 rebounds, 7.5 assists. Basically, the statistical line that we think of as LeBron, 25, 7, and 7, 27, 7, 7. That's kind of the LeBron stat line. The fact that he's still doing this at age 39, it's just mind blowing. So
I've just searched. Sorry, when was Twitter launched? Twitter was launched in 2006. Yeah.
He was already in the league 3 years.
3 years. He was drafted in 2003. LeBron James's tenure in the NBA outdates Twitter. Like, let's just leave it at that. But he's going to get the foul calls. He's going to get to the line. A lot of Boston's success is going to be tied into how they deal with that and how they kind of overcome those frustrations. We've seen Tatum get tied up in these type of arguments with officials before. We know that Jaylen Brown can be emotional at times. We know that Al Horford's going to do his best to keep everybody steady. Porzingis can get teched. He isn't afraid of drawing with people so that to me is my biggest point. Like, how would you word it? It's like my biggest kind of point to watch coming into the game is like, they're gonna get fouls, live with it, and just continue focusing on the process.
Yeah, and I think the Lakers like to play physical. They like to play big. So this is a good challenge for the Celtics, which it looks like they are going to have both Al and Kristaps. I believe Luke Cornett, as of yesterday afternoon, was the only. He was questionable, right? So I think you're going to get a heavy dose of Al and Kristaps in kind of a playoff setting to a degree, right? Because the Lakers, like they're in the play-in. Like I said, this game means a lot to them in the standings. Now that doesn't mean a lot for the Celtics, but it means a lot more for the Lakers right now. So you're going to get everything from them in a national TV game. LeBron understands the moment. LeBron knows that, these are the type of games that in the regular season can have a lasting memory, right? Like a Tuesday night in Atlanta, unless very rarely is that going to be a game that's going to stick out on a highlight reel of his magnitude. But Thursday night in Boston, right after all the All-Star selections go down, you're going to have some eyeballs on this game. Like, LeBron knows that. And LeBron's going to show up in a way for this game that you got to be prepared that he's going to, like you said, going to play bully ball, going to try to get into the lane, get the foul calls. And so it's going to be interesting to see how the Celtics kind of respond to that. And then one other guy I wanted to highlight from the Lakers is D'Angelo Russell. And the reason is not that I would say the Celtics have necessarily a giant worry for D'Angelo Russell, but he's in kind of a weird spot, right? He's in so many rumors, but he's actually started to play well. So I don't know if he's trying to play well to prove to the Lakers that they should keep him, or if he's like, I want to get the hell out of here. I want to be attractive. I want people to come, find a way to get me out of here. But he's, save for the last game against Atlanta, he's played pretty well. He's had, 23 points, 5 assists, 28 points, 5 assists, 29 points, 4 assists, 27 points, 10 assists. Those are his last 4 games, except for their kind of, they lost to Atlanta on 2 days ago here. So aside from that game, he's had a really nice stretch here. So I'm very interested to see what version of D'Angelo Russell we get. And is it going to be one that just, Derek White and Drew Holiday take it upon themselves? Like, listen, LeBron's LeBron. AD is going to do some AD things. You ain't doing shit. I'll tell you that much right now. and I'm curious to know if we get that type of, defensive lock-in from Derek White and Drew Holiday, or if the game plan's more going to be, let's just contain AD and LeBron, and whatever Reeves and Russell can, patch together, we'll live with. But I'll be curious to see what kind of the defensive game plan is.
I can see a lot of cross-matching. I think Drew will get cross-matched onto LeBron. I think that you'll try and do, to a degree, you'll try and do KP on Davis just for size for size. I feel like Davis has the strength advantage there, though. So maybe you cross-match D White there. Maybe you cross-match JB there. I think JB could do a good job getting underneath AD, really frustrating him, adjusting the pickup point to keep him out of the mid-post. Outside of that, though, it's going to be a chess battle. There's going to be things that we see to begin the game that disappear midway through the first, and we probably don't see again because Joe's got a kind of, I say Joe like he's my boy. Joe's got a
boy Joe.
Yeah, it's my boy Joe from down the road. We do jiu-jitsu together. But yeah, I think there's going to be changes that they make early in the game. I think there's going to be ways that LA are attacking the defense that maybe you need to kind of shore up. But Boston play bully ball too, right? Like JB and JT have really been buddy driving in recent games. I've been pointing it out where possible. There's some interior actions going on there. What I don't want them to do is be like, hey, this is super physical. Let's just live from the 3-point line. Like, great if it's falling, go for it. But if it's not, then one of the best things about the game against Indiana was the commitment to getting downhill and attacking the rim. And I think that when that happens, the shots that you do get, they're not as forced on the perimeter. They're a lot more fluid. Everybody's in rhythm. They just feel like better quality shots. And I know a lot of people judge shot quality by like how open were you, like was it in your spot. Now I like the rhythm factor to all of this. I like how the movements kind of, you've got to your spot naturally rather than you've had to kind of force your way there off the dribble or off a couple of screens. So 3-point line, use it but don't live on it. That's going to be a big key as well.
Yeah, and I also think they have a few mismatches they can attack, right? I just named D'Angelo Russell, Austin Reeves will be out there. And so I think there's going to be different opportunities where, and this is, whether it's Porzingis or to your point, maybe it's Jaylen Brown going bully ball. There's multiple options for how you attack that. And I think you made a great point right there. Forcing it to that matchup is when it feels icky, right? It's like, but there is a natural way to get to those mismatches, and that's what I think is pretty key for the Celtics. I think there is times where we fall into our own Sam Hauser style trap that we try to attack a guy that we think we have an advantage on, but we don't do it in the correct way. Whereas if you do it through movement, off-ball screens, running different sets that then enable you to get that mismatch, and you can have flow within that, it's a very different setup of attacking those mismatches than it is just, okay, Tatum has the ball with LeBron on him. Let's bring Reeves screener up. And yeah, that works sometimes, and let's see if we just get that mismatch. But that also sometimes takes you out of your flow and isn't necessarily the way that you want to consistently create offense. Not that it's not an option, but on a consistent basis, you don't want to do that every time down, right? Because then
it drains the clock.
Drains the clock. The defense can then prepare and react to it. So if you're running your sets, but while you're running your sets, you're getting those mismatches, that's going to be a lot harder for the defense to say, here's what we do in this, because we have 4 or 5 different actions. There's options on each of them that they have to make decisions for. And the more decisions as a defense they have to make, the less chance that they have of making enough of the correct ones to stop the Celtics, especially with a team that has not as many defensive, stalwart guys like the Lakers.
Interestingly, the pace, the Lakers don't play at like a slow pace either. They're quite a quick pace team, which is interesting considering the fact that 2 of their best guys are over 30. You'd expect them to, play a little bit more methodically. I still think the Celtics can just up the tempo and just outrun them. They're a lot more athletic 1 through 8, in my opinion. I feel like there are some athletes there. Obviously, LeBron comes into this game as probably the best athlete, even at his age. It's just unnatural. But
it's crazy, man. So real quick, just on that point. So I mentioned this last episode. This is kind of the 1 year reunion of me, you, and Greg getting to meet in Boston for the Celtics Lakers last year. And that was one of the craziest parts of that game. Celtics won, in overtime. It was a great game. LeBron was the best player in that game. And that was the wild part. I think he had 40-something points. I can't remember what his final stat line was. But watching that and knowing that, at this point in their career, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are like, Tatum's a certified stamp superstar. Brown is a certified stamp. He's an all-star when he starts the season. He's only an all-star if he proves he's not an all-star. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he's in that level of player. And so then to see that and see LeBron at, would have been 38 last year and just be like, damn, if this guy, like it, I still think, and I've thought about this a couple of times throughout the season. If you still just had one game to win, just one, I think I still might pick LeBron. Like I know Jokic, I know Embiid, I know even Tatum, like, I think if I have one game, just one game, I need one guy to figure out how to get it done and how to win a singular game. I don't know if I can pick him for a series. I know I can't pick him for a series anymore. It's just too much. It's too much. He needs more help. But for one individual game, I still think there's a real case that LeBron is the best answer to that question.
He has been for over 20 years. And I'm not going to argue with you. I do think, though, when you come into this game, LeBron's the best athlete, but then I think the Celtics possess the next 2 or 3 best athletes. Mike did the same at 39. 1 second, we got a quote here.
But this is the point. Like this is the point of, at when MJ was with the Wizards, when LeBron's here with the Lakers. Once you hit a certain point in your career, you can still be great individually, but you need help, right? Like there was the teams that LeBron took that we was just like, I don't give a shit who else is on my team. Like I'm going to the finals. We'll see what happens in the finals, but like I'm getting to the finals. You know what I mean? So I totally agree. It's insane to think about guys that can sustain that level of play at that age. And it's one of those things where I feel appreciative for like the type of play that we get from Al Horford, which I think is still amazing. And I believe he's 37, I want to say is what Al Horford is. So he's 2 years younger than LeBron James, where you're getting this crazy output. But LeBron's an outlier. No one can compare to what LeBron's done, over the length of his career.
So I'm just doing production side of things. I'm not coming into this game worried. I'm not coming into this game expecting it to be easy. There's a chance that they win. There's a chance that they lose. I do think that the Lakers as an overall roster just aren't as well designed as what Boston's is. I do think what we got here, mismatches everywhere. Let me count the ways: size, age, speed, talent, hustle, coaching, etc., etc. There's a lot of talk about Darvin Ham's coaching. There has been all season long. He's been on the hot seat a little bit, according to reports.
Yeah, I just appreciate that. Missoula doesn't. I don't think he gets quite enough love. He's getting more love as the season goes on. But hey, coaching advantage, I'll take it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all down for the Missoula love at the moment. Do you know what I really find hilarious is whenever he has an interaction with Gary Washburn, it always seems to be confrontational.
They're building a good little rapport, which I think is in like a fun manner. But with Joe, he is a really prickly personality, I would say, or it's just difficult to tell sometimes. So, but I'm with you. I do kind of enjoy their back and forth.
Yeah, I'd like sometimes it seems like really jovial, and then other times it seems like really standoffish. And most of the time, you're probably somewhere in the middle, and that's just how it appears. But Joe, as a human, has kind of really shone through this year. We spoke about this at length. I think Ham's got a really, really difficult job of being like in his second year as a head coach, dealing with LeBron and AD and all the expectations that come with that. And he just hasn't found a way to put them in a position to be consistently good during the regular season. It is worth remembering this Lakers team pretty much as constructed is built
postseason.
Well, they went to the conference finals. Yeah. Sorry, I had to text it through my train of thought off.
No, you're good. But I mean, for me, this is where I'm interested to watch this game tonight because I haven't really locked into a bunch of Lakers games this year because it's kind of like just wake me up when you guys win the play-in, right? Like I know that you guys don't really give a crap about the regular season. You're probably going to have to win the play-in again. Maybe I don't know. They're pretty far back in the standings right now as far as sneaking up to that 6 seed. They're about 4.5 games out. Like that feels like a tall task, but getting to that 8-7 seed and then just making their way into the playoffs. It's like kind of wake me up when that happens with this Lakers team. So I think it'll be interesting to see how it plays out tonight. And yeah, to the point of the comment we got here, C should be able to run them out of the building. We'll see. Like to Adam's point, they actually play a little bit faster than you would expect. So I know because LeBron's the face of that team and he's 39, everyone else in that team is age 30 and younger. So I mean, pretty big gap there. So they seem older because it's all about LeBron, and AD kind of gets hurt a lot. So he feels older than he is. He's only 30, but everyone else on that team is sub 30. So we'll see.
I do want to put out D'Angelo Russell wants to be like Derek White. Austin Reeves wishes he was Derek
I was going to say, what do you call Austin Reeves?
Yeah, I call him wannabe, like wish version Derek White. Like you've got two guys that are aspiring to be the Celtics' fourth option. Fifth option, you know what I mean? And like that's two of their core rotation guys. I haven't seen the Lakers recently, so I'm not sure what. I know they moved AR to the bench for a while, wanted him to come kind of be that that spark plug guy as a sixth man. I'm not sure whether he's back in the rotation now.
I believe he's still coming off the bench. I think they might have at one point they had him and Russell coming off the bench. I'll be honest. I'm not sure where they're at right now. Yeah.
That wasn't working.
Back in the starting lineup. Yeah. So we'll see what they roll out with tonight, but I think it should be a fun game. It's Celtics Lakers, so it's always going to be fun. Everyone's going to be geared up. The crowd's going to be ready. It's going to be a fun one. And like I said, just as a reminder, Greg and I, if you want to watch the game with us, we'll be on playback. Make sure that you guys come through. We'll have the links posted on social media throughout the day. So if you guys want to join us, it's free to sign up. Come on in, connect your cable network account, or if you got a League Pass account, just connect it and you can watch with us. And we'll be doing some more events through playback throughout the rest of the year. And then after the game, Greg and I will have a post-game recap that will be going up on the audio feed and on the YouTube channel as well. But Adam, any other thoughts you have on this game? And before we get to a couple mailbag questions,
Celtics to win by 6.
Celtics by 6. I like it. I think actually this is going to be a double digit one. I'm taking Celtics by 11. We'll see how it plays out. We'll check in after the game and see how our predictions went. But with that being said, let's transition here as we do actually have a couple of mailbag questions that we want to get to. We got these from Twitter as well as from our Discord, which, by the way, for those of you tuning in right now, if you're not in the Discord, get in the Discord. This is where we get a lot of material. We bounce a lot of ideas of what we want to see, as well as sign up for our YouTube memberships here if you want to get early access to certain podcasts, as well as access to crunch time filmings that Greg and Adam are going to be doing throughout the end of the season. We'll also be mixing in some of our playback with that as well. So with that, Adam, let's start here. Let's go back.
Let me just jump in. While we're doing promos. We're doing a mailbag section. So we've got some questions from the Discord, but you know, we're all about trying to grow this thing. We're all about trying to make this more sustainable. So if you do want a mailbag question answered, the super chats are turned on. For a super chat, we'll make sure we get to the mailbag question before we get out of here. No pressure, of course. It does help us very much. We love you. Sorry, now you can continue.
Appreciate you guys. So let's do this. Let's go back and forth. Then we got a couple of questions that we want to get to. So I'll do a Discord question. You do a Twitter question. I'll do a Discord question. You do a Twitter question, and then we'll wrap this thing up. Does that sound good?
I don't have any Twitter questions.
You got a couple Twitter questions.
Did I get? I didn't get the notifications.
I checked them in there. If you go back to your post, you got at least a couple of questions in there.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, but I'll start out with one that we got here in the Discord from RR23. Let's see, it's not necessarily directly Celtics related, but what are our thoughts on the all NBA 65 game limit? This has obviously been a kind of hot topic with Joel Embiid and Tyrese Halliburton, who just was in Boston. And as you saw, is kind of his comeback game, his second attempt at a comeback game. And they really limited him to a very strict, I think it was 20, 25 minutes, whatever it was, where he came out in the middle of the third quarter and then did not come back the rest of that game. So they were very strict about what they wanted to get him to. Adam, I'll start with you here, man. What are your thoughts on the 65 game limit that's been making the rounds?
I like it in the sense that how many times over the years have we said, like, oh man, he got this award because it's who he is, rather than because, like, you know, he's been injured for 2/3 of the year, yet still was in the running for MVP or in the running for this, when there's other guys that have been healthy for 70 games, putting up similar numbers but aren't there. So in terms of fairness, I understood why it was done, and I understood why the league would want it that way, because it also incentivizes star players to be healthy for the majority of the regular season, which then draws views, it draws ratings, it draws money. Mm-hmm. In terms of just a hard stop at 65 games, I think there needs to be some form of, like, kind of like loophole, not even a loophole, like there needs to be a little bit more case by case basis type of thing. Like if you've played 64 games, you're unequivocally the MVP of the season, and then you land funny and now you're out for the rest of the year. That shouldn't stop you being able to be an MVP, because you've proven that over such a large sample size. It needs to be a little bit more leeway there. So I do think that it was a good thing for the league. It encourages people to play, but I do think there needs to be a little bit more discussion on how to police it when it's such a clear cut.
I think it just gets tough when you start to make it a little bit subjective. Okay, so there we go. So I guess there is Adam Silver may have a clause there as we're getting chimed in.
It's the Adam brain. That's what it
is. Yeah, it's the Adam clause. But I mean, for me, I really just don't have much of an actual issue with it, because, I mean, think about it. You can still miss 17 games. That's nearly a quarter of the season, right? You can still miss 17 games, and honestly, shit happens. Sometimes you miss. Now, the only part that I sympathize for is a guy like Tyrese Halliburton who would be eligible for a much larger payday, because it's going to be tied to him making all NBA. But so all NBA, like, that can be a little bit trickier because it is tied to some of those contract incentives. But at the same time, like, if you play 60 games and the guy that you're being compared to played 72 games, like, shouldn't it not be valued that he played 12 more games than you, and that his, you know, if you guys are kind of neck and neck, like, you know, so, and I think for the most part, like, it's really that, like, third team all NBA that you're really going to find a lot of guys that even in past years were falling under that 65 game threshold. And for MVP, I don't even really think it's much of an issue. Like, not the most available player. I mean,
availability is the best value, though, right? It's the best ability.
Like, if Embiid plays 64 games and Jokic plays 75, 76 games, like, that should matter to me, right? Like, I think that makes a difference, you know? And so, especially we're like, as fans of the Celtics, we got two guys that play night in and night out. Like this 65 game rule doesn't really matter for the Celtics because our two stars are never going to be really close to that. Because they play every single night. Now, of course, they're going to have a few nights here and there where they get hurt, but I actually just don't think the 65 game limit is that big of a deal. I really don't. And like, you mentioned it, Adam, from a financial perspective, like this is the NBA trying to market. Like if all these players want these big salaries, like part of that's tied to media deals. And so the media, whether it's Turner or it's ESPN, they want to pay for a package where it's like, hey, I don't want to end up in the situation that we had in Denver the other night where constantly my marquee game is supposed to be Jokic and Embiid, and now it's Jokic versus the G League Sixers. Or it's going to be games where you don't have your star guys. So I think it makes sense all around. I don't really have much. I'm with you that there probably should be a little bit of subjectivity and flexibility to it. So we'll see if Adam Silver decides to invoke whatever clause that he has, depending on certain situations.
The Adam clause.
But yeah, the Adam clause. But I don't have much of an issue with it. I think we'll see that as this goes on over, this is the first year of it. So, of course, everyone's going to have issues the first year. But I think as time goes on, it will kind of play itself out. And ultimately, I think this will not be as big of a deal in future seasons.
So I've got a question on Twitter. And I know, Rich, if you're watching this, if you listen to it back, I know that you messed with some of the stuff we put out there. I want to apologize straight off the bat because my plan was to just go past this question completely and then just hit you up on the side and be like, dude, that was too much work. But my boy Will here read it and decided that he wanted to do the deep dive. He wanted to dive in.
So give us the question here.
Yeah, the question is, the Celtics regular starting five are all averaging double figures in points. I think this is extremely rare, and are there any other instances of this in recent times, and did those teams end up winning the chip? Apologies in advance for the statistical deep dive that may ensue. So double-digit teams, all starting five. Have any of those teams in recent years managed to win a championship that same season?
So I really appreciate this question, Rich, because to me, I thought the answer to this was going to be that it is more rare, when in fact it's actually relatively common. In fact, the last champion did this. So the Nuggets did this last year. They had 5 starters that were in double digits. And I actually kind of went back and just looked through, and it gets, just as Adam, as you and I were talking about, what is the Lakers starting lineup? Like it gets a little bit murky depending on what you're classifying as who was that starting 5 for that season. But even with the Celtics, if you look back over the last couple of years, they've basically had 5 guys that are in double digits. I believe last year, Al Horford was at 9.8 points per game. And then you had Malcolm Brogdon at 15 points per game off the bench, right? So they basically had 6 guys. The year before that, I think Rob Williams was the lone starter, not in double figures, but he also was at about 9.8 points per game. And I think even the year before, they might have had all their guys in double figures. So the Heat have done this several times where they have like 8 guys that average, double digits, and their starting lineup is constantly, fluctuating. So it is actually more common than you would think, which I was surprised by. So I'll be honest, I was very surprised with that. But to Rich's question, I was trying to figure out, why does it feel like it's different when this team has all their guys scoring in double figures? And here's what I think it is. So this is what I kind of landed on, is that what is very rare. So the top 5, so your 5 starters scoring in double digits, not necessarily the most rare, but what is rare is having 3 guys average 20 points per game from your starting 5. That's something that's only been done a handful of times. And so right now the Celtics are just below that threshold. And so I'm going to mention a couple of teams here that have done it. And you're going to say, what about the Heatles? No, they're not going to be an answer. What about the Celtics' original big 3? That's not going to be an answer either. And so you're going to see that it is a very rare feat. So right now, just for the Celtics, for perspective, Tatum is at 26.9 points per game. Jaylen Brown's at 22.6. And Kristaps is just below at 19.4. But from what I could find, and this was a little bit of my own digging, found a thread on Reddit. So if I'm missing one, go ahead, put it in the comments, send it to me in my DMs. I may have missed one, but this is what I found for the answers. And the funny part is there's, I think, 5 different times that it's happened, 4 of which are the Warriors, but over different eras. So here are the 5 results that I found, Adam. So we've got the 90-91 Warriors, the Run TMC. We've got Chris Mullin at 25.7, Mitch Richmond at 23.9, and Tim Hardaway at 22.9. Fast forward to the We Believe Warriors 07-08. We've got Baron Davis, Monta Ellis, and Steven Jackson. Now we get into the ones that you kind of expected. 2016, 2017 Warriors, 2017, 2018 Warriors, Curry, Durant, Thompson, back-to-back years. All three of them hit 20 points. And then the only other team that made this, and I believe this is the only one that didn't even make the playoffs, was the Sacramento Kings in 2013-14. They had Boogie Cousins, shout out to IT. IT made it 20.3 points per game, and Rudy Gay at 20.1 points per game. So only 5 instances that I could find of 3 guys averaging 20. And this is where Rich, it got too deep for me to do any more, is to figure out what's the largest point per game total for the 4th leading scorer. Because then now if you're looking at the Celtics, you're at 15.8, roughly 16 points a game for Derek White, and now 13.4 for Holiday as the 5th guy. That's why I think this feels different, is because usually that 4th or 5th guy, you're kind of at that Marcus Smart level that we've seen in years past. Or I mentioned before, Al Horford was hovering around 9.8, 10 points per game last year. Usually those last 2 guys are like 10 to 12 points. Whereas for the Celtics, your number 4 guy is 16 points a game, and your number 5 guy is 13 and a half. So I think because there's such a large volume from that 5, it feels different, even though it is relatively normal in the history of the NBA for a team to have 5 guys in double digits. I don't know that the volume of what the Celtics produce on a night-to-night basis, which is going to be roughly around 100 points just coming from your starting lineup, that's probably why I think it feels so different. So that's my long-winded answer of the research I did to Rich's question.
No, that's a good answer, because I was just not going to answer it and shoot him a message later. Like, dude, I didn't have the time. I'm not even going to lie. That was like,
well, like I said, there's other layers, Rich. If you want to dig into it, there's other layers that you could go to. I don't got that type of time. I did the base of what I could. And I really enjoyed the question because I've thought this before, and I was surprised to find it's more common. But like I said, having those 3 20-point per game scorers, and in the 5 examples I gave, 2 of them won the championship, but those were obviously those Warriors teams that were beyond super
unfairly constructed.
Yeah.
Unfairly constructed. Right, next question from Discord. He's looking. This is live podcasting for you.
Mid-year thoughts on the Celtics assistant. This is from Nomit, Nommit. Shout out to the Discord channel. Mid-year thoughts on the Celtics assistant coaches. Joe understandably gets a lot of attention, but curious if you have any insights about the newer staff. Adam,
I have no personal insights. Like, I haven't heard anything, spoke to anyone about it. I haven't met them. Clearly, I haven't been to Boston since these guys joined. What I will say is, since Cassell came in, there has been some reporting that he's been working with Tatum and Brown on their post games. We're seeing more post-up offense. We're seeing more rim pressure. Whether that is a byproduct of the new coaches coming in, or whether that's just a byproduct of Joe having a full off season to design an offensive system, and these coaches have came in and been able to help build on that, accentuate that a little bit, and also give their own experience as NBA guys on what works, what doesn't work. Overall, as a coaching staff, I think this is one of the best coaching staffs we've seen in a while. This goes in terms of NBA experience, in terms of experience as coaches, in terms of experience in different situations. The defense is really shaped by Charles Lee with the above the break threes. It resembled a lot of the Bucks. It does, but then, like, for the last bit of the Bucks tenure, it was very much we'll give up threes and protect the paint. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? Like, there was times where Budenholzer would just be like, shoot the threes because we want to stop you getting the easy twos. And I will say that one of Mazzulla's best attributes during his time as an assistant was designing good defensive systems. He was widely credited with the Rob Roma role. I think that he's been quite good at coming up with the cross-matching system. We saw it a little bit last season. I think Charles Lee probably had a bit to do there. Again, we've got another comment saying Charles Lee's defense as well. I do want to give credit to Charles Lee, but I also want to say that Joe's proven himself as a good defensive kind of system constructor at the same time. Again, I don't know anything more than what everybody else knows. I'm not in the know about that at all.
I mean, this is one of the few questions that I think for our show is just really difficult to answer because we're not there, right? We're like, this is the one of the few times where I'm like, yeah, this is where we're at a little bit of a disadvantage to answer a question of this type. But one thing from a distance that I do think without knowing the specifics of other than what I read that everyone else does of what Cassell's done, what Charles Lee has brought, is I think that they've given Mazzulla confidence, right? Because I think you can see that this is Mazzulla's staff now, right? He inherited what was supposed to be Ime's staff. It wasn't ever his staff, right?
It was meant to be the people he was working with. He inherited his
He was a substitute
co-workers.
He was even though he got the interim tag removed, he was a substitute teacher last year, right? This year, he's the guy. He's had all off season. He was as part of the Sam Cassell hire. He was part of the Charles Lee hire. He was part of bringing in Phil Pressey. Everybody else, like that had to go through him. That had to be okayed by him. He had to be the one to initiate. He had to be the one in those discussions. So I think without knowing the intricacies of a day-by-day, practice-by-practice basis, I think the fact that it's given Mazzulla an ecosystem to allow him to feel authentic and for him to feel comfortable, I think that residual effect is something that's extremely evident in what we see from Mazzulla, who's a little bit easier to kind of know what he's doing or not doing just from afar, right? Being able to judge that. And so I think that's an extreme positive just from their ability to uplift Mazzulla that having guys like Charles Lee and having guys like Sam Cassell have provided for this team. All right, then we got one more Twitter question.
I don't know how to interpret it though. So this is from
I don't either. That's why I figured we can talk about it and then we'll wrap this up here.
It's from Alstein. Should the Celtics establish an offensive center to better handle the defenses of teams like the Nuggets and Clippers? I don't know how to interpret that. Like clearly they mean something, and I don't want to be disrespectful or rude.
For sure. But I just want to make sure we bring it up because when I look at this, I guess like. Are they asking, do we need to run the offense through Kristaps in those situations? Is that kind of what we're asking here? Because I think the Celtics, one thing that they've had to figure out early in the season, they've done a pretty good job now, is like, hey, when we have the Kristaps advantage, which is most nights, not every night, but most nights, let's spam the hell out of it because we're going to make teams scramble, react, and that creates so many other opportunities. And so, I would assume that when I look at this question, and once again, to the Twitter user, I'm definitely, using my own knowledge here to try to interpret this question. But, I know a somewhat of an issue with the Nuggets game was people were saying, oh, we didn't get the ball to Kristaps enough in the second half because he was hot in the first half, right? And he only had, I think it was like 2-3 shots in the second half. But I would come back to that, and I don't have the stats in front of me. We got him the ball quite a bit in the second half. He got fouled a lot. He wasn't in shooting form yet, but there was still quite a bit of that offense that ran through him. Could he have gotten a few extra shots? Probably. Like, I'm not going to say that wasn't, but I think the Celtics have done a really good job of making Kristaps a focal point because he is the ultimate X factor. When he's out there, there is just such a difference to the way that this offense operates. Even on nights when he's not hitting shots, this offense is different solely by his presence on the court.
I think the only thing I'd change is if your perimeter game's not really working and teams have kind of adjusted to push KP that one step further beyond the 3-point line, so he's not as effective as a shooting threat, and they're kind of blowing up your handoff actions or your screening actions, I'd work with him as a post entry guy or a nail entry guy or in an elbow action around that region and look to create actions off of that entry, right? So the last season, blind pig was quite consistent. The Celtics run a lot of blind pig, put Porzingis at the elbow, passing the ball, someone cuts, gets a little bit the dump off. You could go into a post entry and then wait for the defense to collapse. Porzingis is going to be able to see over that, be able to kick it out. You go into your ball rotation, work for an open three or a secondary drive. There is ways to get him more involved by taking him off the perimeter and putting him inside. But I do think you lose something there in terms of spacing that you kind of have to decide how much value it's going to bring you versus how much value it's going to take away. Right. And that's obviously a coaching decision in the moment, how the matchups are working. Do you need an interior presence? That's what KP can give you that post presence. He's been scoring from the post this season. He can face up and shoot through you. And I say that because he will shoot body to body on you and still score. You can get him a low post touch. Maybe you put him in a dunker spot for some possessions just to drag a big away from what's going on the perimeter. But at the same time, I like KP being on the perimeter because it puts bigs in actions more consistently because they're either too high up to really be playing like deep.
They've got to make a really tough choice, right?
It's a tough choice. So Porzingis just brings a lot of benefits, period. I think that one of the things we've said on this show for a lot of times now is he was the missing piece, and he really was a missing link. Can you establish him more as an offensive threat? Probably, but I think you lose some of the mystery around the role he's in now, and having the Jalen and Jason tandems work off there, having the Drew Holiday. There was if you follow Caitlin, is it Caitlin Cooper from the Pacers?
Caitlin Cooper from the Pacers.
If you follow Caitlin Cooper, she put out a really good video of Drew Holiday operating as the 5-man. Like there's so much mystery because of how versatile Porzingis is. Like I can kind of understand the question, but at the same time, I think he's already established.
I do too. So I think maybe there's another question they're trying to ask here, but that's okay. That's the whole point of this. We want to just kind of have a conversation around it. And I think, we're seeing it in the chat right now. Like Porzingis is the key. I think, with him, it's a different level. And that's why if this team's healthy with that starting 5, listen, they've lost only, I think, 2 games or 3 games with that starting 5 in place. It's going to be tough for any team to win 4 games out of 7 against that starting 5 if we have all of them available, plus Al and everybody else off the bench. So should be fun one, man. Adam, Celtics Lakers coming up tonight. Should be a blast. Once again, if you guys want to join us on playback, come watch the game with us. Myself and Greg will be in there hanging out, chatting it up. We'll talk about the game. We'll talk about whatever you guys want. We got a live chat going. It's a lot of fun. Come build the community. And then post game, Greg and I will have something for you. So make sure you're following us on Twitter, and then it will be on YouTube later tonight. Adam, always a pleasure, my guy. Let's do our friend Greg a service here, and we will play this episode out with his band down here in Austin, Texas. They are called Black Sheep Optimists, and we will catch you guys tonight. Peace, everybody.
Every time I get this high, I lose my mind. It don't take much no more until I hit the floor. Every time I get this high, it's you I find. It don't take much no more until I'm at your door.
You cut me to my core, baby. What can I say? You got me on the floor, I came to play. I know I shouldn't, but you seem to take my pain away.